Now, 2 sitting weeks left before the federal election, the Labor leadership remains at the top of the political agenda. Today's Fairfax Nielsen poll shows primary support for the government has dropped 3 points to under 30%. The coalition up 3 at 47. That translates to a 43 to 57 two-party preferred. But the Nielsen poll also found if Kevin Rudd was Labor leader, the two-party preferred vote would be split 50-50. And Julia Gillard's personal popularity has dropped to its lowest level this year. On the question of preferred Prime Minister, Mr Gillard is down 5 points to 41%. Tony Abbott is up 4 at 50%. They're extraordinary numbers. Political strategist Bruce Hawker joins me now. Bruce, these numbers, would this be the worst election in Labor history they're facing if those numbers come through?
I think they would, David. I think in 1975, Labor lost about 31 seats, I think, under Gough Whitlam, with a primary vote that was a little better than that.
Goodness me. Now, the polls say Labor has, the support among men has collapsed. The support among women is unchanged. Julia Gillard's strategy of playing the gender card obviously failed.
It did.
It was high risk to start with.
Yeah, it certainly was, and obviously she got a big bounce out of her speech around misogyny last year. But I think we saw amongst men a big drop in support. Women remained pretty solid, if you want to call it that, at 43%. But it was amongst men that there was a real feeling of unease about the way in which it played out. OK, so Labor is on the brink, facing its worst political outcome in its history. Despite that, and the poll showing Kevin Rudd would do better, one Labor backbencher, Laurie Ferguson, says he's not the answer. Take a look.
Quite frankly, I think that 5 minutes after he's elected leader, the opposition will be stressing the immigration changes that he engineered, and that's Western Sydney.
What do you reckon, Bruce? Does Kevin Rudd come with just way too much baggage?
Well, I think he comes with authenticity. I think he comes as a Prime Minister who was actually very popular. He had 52% of the primary vote when he was deposed back in 2010. I think the public like him. We see that every day. He really is Labor's last great hope.
Okay. You're a mate of his. You're one of his strategists. Is he prepared to run?
I think he's waiting to see what the party is going to do. The normal thing in situations like this is that party elders go to the leader and say, look, it's time to move on. I don't think...
So who are those elders? Like Bill Shorten?
Well, there's the Shortens of the world. Anybody who has gravitas in the party and who commands support and respect, I think they're the sorts of people who would normally go and say, look, time's up. We really do need to make a change here. OK,
why doesn't he just do it?
Well, he did back in 2012, and he was beaten quite soundly by Julia Gillard. He gave a commitment at that point that he wasn't going to challenge again, that this is the sort of thing that requires consensus in the party. And I think he's right about that.
Why does the party hate him so much?
Well, I think there's been a bit of rewriting of history around that. I don't think he was reviled in the way in which people tried to make out in 2012 when they used
all sorts of ministers saying if Kevin came back, they'd resign.
Well, that was right. And I think that was a strategy that was adopted back in 2012, which I think ultimately was counterproductive.
Yeah, but Peter Garrett's saying it today.
Oh, yeah. And he made that clear back in 2012 as well. I think there would be a number of ministers who would say, look, we do have to go because he was not our choice. We made it clear back in 2012. But that wouldn't be the end of the show by any stretch of the imagination.
2 weeks to go. Will Julia Gillard survive the week or this 2 weeks?
Yeah, I don't know, David. I honestly don't know.
Oh, wow. OK. All right, Bruce, thank you for that. Keep us posted, Mel.